I'm Todd Pappy, Game Director, God of War Ascension. What you're about to see is a making of video that we've been shooting over about 2+ years. It gives you a good idea of the inception of an idea all the way through to the final product. Keep in mind that this is a work in progress. Enjoy. Hecatonchires, I call him Hector, is a 100-arm, 50-head creature in mythology. And again, like the Titans, these were actually stronger than the gods.
There are these giants that took part in the big war between the gods and the Titans. I think they guard the Titans that are in hell.
It's something that we've never seen before in our mythos, and so we thought that it would be a really cool prison level where you can be walking around and see eyes on the walls or on the ground. You feel like somebody's always watching you. There's actually a shanty town in Brazil that was kind of a little bit of the inspiration for this.
One of the major elements of the entire God of War series is that first big boss battle, the big in-your-face moment, in medias res thing that God of War does so well. Going back into the past with the Hydra and the Colossus, with Gaia and Poseidon, I have some big shoes to fill. It's really scary, but it's also really exciting because this is, you know, just a continuation in the big moments, the most memorable moments of all of God of War. So based on the concept of 50 heads and 100 arms, I thought it would be interesting to make it a creature at first. So I went with an octopus and created this palace on top of a giant land octopus that's living in the ground. We ended up doing some more, so this is a standard figure with the 100 arms coming out of every pore of the body. And I was thinking that the prison palace thing could be its upper body head shape, and that it would just have these rotating faces going all the way around. Here's sort of the monster finger tentacle things. These guys would be at the very tips of every arm. Here's some more variations of them. So I went back and forth from pretty human-looking elements to some really creature-based ones. Hecatonchires is just a puppet. The Fury is the controller. So she's the primary villain that you need to be getting as Kratos. So this is the Hecatonchires. The Hecatonchires is the first prisoner of the Furies. And over the millennia, the Furies just built on top of it so that all of the other prisoners and subjects of the Furies now live in or are tortured on the surface of Hecatonchires.
I'm a little nervous, but I'm excited. I want to deliver something that kind of brings something new to the God of War franchise. This gives me a lot of inspiration and ideas for how this could potentially look. So in an actual level, and the shell's basically the template. What we base this off of is a script, and that script basically calls out all the different story moments. And so we kind of take that script, and then, you know, now we're building this out in 3D. Imagine this is one of the arms. So here, you know, you're kind of running up an arm, and then there'll be combat in here. The idea here is just putting a stake in the ground. Once we get this feeling right and the space feels right, then we'll actually divvy this up, and a designer will own different sections and then really go into detail.
Hecaton has had some changes. It's had some birthing pains. One of the defining moments of feedback for us is when, during the meeting, it was stated that Monster didn't feel like a cover monster. You know, like if we were to illustrate him and have him fighting Kratos on a cover, that monster didn't look badass enough for a person to want to play the game. And once we figured that out, we completely changed direction. Originally, our concept was that Hecaton was the first breaker of oaths, and thus the Fury's first victim or prisoner, and they just built a prison around him and on him and in him. I've been working on the creature hand for a while now. We needed a little bit more intelligence in the creature. We wanted to include something to hit. Then I started implementing things like human body parts or ways to break the arm up in unusual ways. Kept coming back to, we don't want it to feel like a hand, but make it feel a little bit like a hand. Here's the parasite wearing the hand as a jacket. It can get tough to keep the creative juices going, but ultimately that's the purpose for a concept artist, is to keep bringing something new to the table and find as many solutions that you possibly can for that one problem. At this point, Todd was really interested in looking at how we could integrate the parasite aspect. We were looking at things like rhino horn beetles as influences, and ultimately those things did stick. So this shape, from here on out, you'll be seeing a lot of. I liked this one a lot, the sort of flounder hand. I name all of these when I'm by myself, alone in the dark. This is Autonomous, Junior, Flounder Face, Squeeble, and Juicer. they're all part of the same family. It's a problem. So this ended up being the defining point where we were taking it into the final. Ultimately, this is what we're going with. This is the harpoon, which will retract into the body. This is the retracted version so that he can still grab Kratos. And then finally, the big reveal is the split of the two forearm bones with the hands on them. And then we'll have this center monster. Right now, this is the final look. He's way out there. Generally, the way I approach things is I start with realism and then kind of like just broach a little bit till things get creepier and creepier. This time I'm starting out in left field and kind of bringing it back. It's been a new experience for me, but it's exciting because I'm doing something that I totally wouldn't have conceived of myself doing before.
Hecaton's a little behind right now, from my point of view. But then, on the other hand, that's where we got to balance the awesome with the schedule. So, God bless America, it better be good.
With creating Hecaton, we had to kind of create its own mythos. So I think that's kind of what took us a very long time to develop in BizDev, is what path do we want to take and making sure that it actually looks cool and fits in our universe.
This is just the primary folder. We're not even getting into subset folders of drawings upon drawings, redrawings, redesigns, and initial passes at the Hecatonchires monster. And each one of these folders is just like this.
Since this is the first level of the game, we want to teach the player, the basics, right? This time the tutorial is different than the previous God of Wars in the sense that we're not opening with a fight. This time around, we're actually going to try to do a chase. You want it to be high action, but at the same time, this could be the first time someone has played this game. That's been a bit of a challenge. This is the starting area for Hecaton. And as you can see, there's a Fury that you're supposed to chase. So basically, if I zoom out here, you can see that we're chained up to the roof of Hecaton's mouth. So after you break yourself free, you start your chase. So these are prisoners, obviously. As you move, she causes stuff to fall. So that's kind of a new ability for Kratos where he can vault over these objects. You continue to chase her, she closes gates. This is where the player can actually double jump for the first time. She just keeps leading you on. She's like, come get me, Kratos. And then this time, you come over and you slide, and you couldn't stop yourself, so you basically crash through. She injects these guys on the ground with parasites, which causes them to come alive. So during the course of the fight, some of these cells are gonna get ripped off. When this one gets ripped off, it actually opens up the cell, and so now you're kind of on the outside. Here, there's gonna be a strength moment where Kratos actually busts open the gate, and he's gonna re-enter the prison. You'll see that it's lined with a bunch of jail cells, and there'll be arms sticking out, and you'll see the Fury again. You're like, oh, there she is. And as you make your way to get her, a huge hand comes crashing down. This is kind of when we have the first reveal of this huge arm. You kind of ride the arm out, and then here you could see, this is the main arm, and off of the main arm are the smaller arms, and that's where you started. And so basically, here's the 6 arm. There's 3 on this side, 3 on that side. Here's legs here, and he's kind of reaching up towards the sky. That was his last stand. We had to create large spaces because of new mechanics like slide. You're moving pretty fast.
I think this game is definitely different than previous game because first of all, it's more epic. It's more bigger, and again, we try to use some of the architectures that we haven't done. So here what you see is kind of really very high vision concept coming up with the Hecaton architecture. This is another sketch, but a little bit different architecture style, trying to add some lot of triangular stuff, see how Todd and Chris are reacting to that. They love all this kind of pointing stuff coming out. They wanted me to kind of take over on a color pass. And then they finally decided to go with these 2 directions. This feels definitely texture feels too similar, and it's kind of hard to read what's architectures and what's the street. What you see here, they wanted a warmer tone in the street and then maybe cooler tones and the architectural stuff. So what you see on top here is the rough 3D models that I got from environment artists, and they wanted me to put all the architectures into their 3D, see if everything works out. The street is made out of Hecaton body, so we try to make it a little bit more flesh, so giving it a little bit more warmer tone than architecture.
Jung Park did some high vision paintings that were loose but had this like eerie, cloudy, just kind of wet and dirty street. Just kind of working off of that high vision stuff, I really helped to refine exactly what those details are. This is the first boss arena where you encounter this sort of arm creature that is growing on top of a Hecaton. He moves his arm, and as it turns, I kind of was like, oh, maybe as he's sort of decayed over time, a lot of the stonework isn't quite held down, and so as he turns, a lot of it falls apart. And I thought that would be really cool to show just this decay, and you see these giant chunks falling off. After you defeat this beast, you know, the arm turns back and you slide down this sort of road. So also going in and going, oh, there's all these pitfalls that you could go into, and here's like some prisons underneath there. His hand is actually like ripped off, so it's still stuck to a wall, and that's something that you get to encounter later.
The hardest thing for Hecaton so far is just placing everything so it works with design and the composition of everything and just the sheer scale of everything. And this is the whole city, and he's huge. His figure goes all the way down. The player will start off inside his mouth, and you do a battle in here, and before you know it, you're on your way going through all these jail cells that are down here, making your way through the arm, and then this whole thing moves, and everything's rigged. Everything in the scene is going to be rigged onto this character. Again, this is way bigger than the previous things that we've done before and more complicated. Now I'm working on this. This is called Hecaton 100, and I got some textures that are blocked out. All the stuff is suspended by big chains. You'll see arms sticking out of windows, and you'll see bodies inside these cages and everything. And that's Hecaton so far.